Welcome guys to another session of Honest Talk About Women, where you'll learn tips, tricks and strategies on how to navigate the minefields of dating and relationships. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and also comment in the comment section. It all helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you have a story you want to share with viewers, please contact me on my email address listed below. Today's story is about Gary and how he became a member of the Pattaya Flying Squadron Club. In a previous life I had a construction company and it was a B2B business. We only had two customers, two big residential construction companies, and we did all the masonry work for them. And like any company that's in the construction industry, it's feast or famine, boom or bust. Some years are very, very hot and you run off your feet. Other years it's quiet and it can lead to very little sales. One year my business was booming and we had to employ contractors to keep up with our two customers. And I came across a bricklayer called Gary. I'll say that's not his real name, but I'll say it was Gary, to keep his kid's identity non-disclosed. And Gary was a typical one-man band. It was a dog, a mixer and a bricklayer. And very rarely do I contract with one-man bands, because if they're sick, then your job can get delayed and the customer can become very unhappy. But in this occasion, Gary was very reliable. He always turned up on time on the day he wanted to start work and didn't leave the job until he finished. And that was the ideal contractor, because there's nothing worse in construction with contractors that say they're going to turn up and they don't turn up, or if they do turn up, they're half pissed. And when Gary was on the job, he was focused, he did a great job, he laid a straight brick, his workmanship was good. It wasn't excellent, but it was good. And he did a good job. So I had a working relationship with this guy, but he was very much a loner. He had very few friends. He wasn't a team player. He never employed other bricklayers. He never employed labourers. He did everything himself. And he was a hard worker, but he was socially awkward. And he was a bit of a scruff. He had the pot belly. He had the unkempt hair, the unshaven face. He smelled of BO, and wasn't a modern type of guy. But he's a good, decent bloke though. Good, decent bloke. Anyway, as the years went on, we occasionally contracted Gary to do some work for us, and things were going well, and he could slide in and slide out quite easily. Now, Gary, he lived in a suburb of Auckland where there was a lot of state houses, the equivalent of housing projects in North America. It's basically government houses. And there was a bit of crime associated with this suburb, Beach Haven. Not all of Beach Haven, but pockets of it. And it was a lower end suburb. But he lived in a state house, him and his wife and two kids. And he eventually brought the state house from the government. When the government was selling them off, he applied and he purchased his first house. Eventually his wife walked out on him and took his two kids, and I could tell that Gary became very lonely and semi-depressed. And he always went to the local pub in the Wairau Valley after work for a couple of beers before he went home. Like any construction guy, he liked his alcohol, but he was very, very lonely going home to an empty house. And I noticed that, and so did some of the other people on the construction site. So to stop the bitter loneliness, he became an Uber driver at night, and it must have been really hard on Gary picking up lovely young ladies late at night with their boyfriends in the backseat of his car, all smooched up. So it may have aided the loneliness, seeing couples like that in the backseat of his car. But he's trying to keep his mind off what happened to him, and trying to keep his mind off the loneliness aspect of his life. So over the course of having a drink after work, he heard other construction people talk about Thailand and Pattaya in particular. So with Thailand, it's known to a lot of people as the sex industry, but there's so much more to Thailand than just the sex industry. It's a beautiful place. It's very reasonably priced. There's plenty to see and do, and there's plenty of other activities to do than the sex industry. And most of the concentration of the sex industry is in Pattaya, which is a little town. It's about an hour south of Bangkok. It has a couple 100,000 people there, and it goes up to I think about 300,000 in the Christmas period. And it's well sought after by a lot of Western men that go there. The sex industry in Thailand really exploded during the Vietnam War. There was a lot of American troops in Vietnam, and it was about, at its peak, 475,000 men, soldiers from the US Army in Vietnam. And can you just imagine the payroll that the American government would be paying to not only pay those troops, but also feed them, clothe them, and give them guns and ammunition, tanks, aeroplanes, or whatever to fight with. It was a huge burden on the United States economy, and in some ways the government printed a lot of money to pay for the Vietnam War, and that's what created the inflation in the early late 60s, early 70s, and the delinking of gold since World War II of the US dollar to gold. But that's economics, and we're talking about relationships here, and in particular Gary. And just on another side note, I was actually married to a Malaysian Chinese lady in New Zealand for a while, and her father used to always niggle me about the white man exploiting Asia. And that wasn't necessarily true, I used to tell him, because Japan also conquered large parts of Asia and did a lot of bad things, and they weren't white. But also I used to add a bit of humour into it and tell him that there's one country in Asia that never got conquered by the white man, and that was Thailand, because every time the white man went there, he got hypnotized by the woman. And in some ways, that's true even into today and to this story. But anyway, let's get back to Gary. So off to Pattaya, Gary went. When he came back to work in Auckland on the construction sites, he often mentioned to fellow construction workers he had a girlfriend in Pattaya, and he was quite proud of showing her on his phone. Now, there's a particular type of female that works in Pattaya, and it's mostly the bar girls that work there, and it's a different caliber of Thai woman, and you're dealing with the underbelly of Thai society. Not entirely trustworthy, and not believable in what they say, have very little morals, little ethics, and often they have multiple partners, male partners, and they also have a husband in tow, and often introduce their husband as their brother to their current boyfriend. So there's a lot of smokes and mirrors there, and you're dealing with a seedy underbelly. But I'm not saying all Thai women are like that. I'm just talking about a very small minority of Thai women who work in the bar scene that of that ilk. Now, Gary, he was very, very naive on the sexual front, relationship front. He had a very, very low sexual market value, but he wanted companionship. He wanted to find a lady, and off to Pattaya he went. And he was doing this every 3 or 4 months, leaving for 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, to go to Pattaya when working in Auckland. Eventually, my business was getting quite busy, and I needed to contract more people to take the workload off the full-timers, and I couldn't get hold of Gary anymore. And I left messages on his phone. There was no reply back. And eventually I just gave up. He may have left town. A lot of construction guys are moving around, and that's absolutely fine, understandable. However, about a year later, I was on a construction site, and I saw one of his old school buddies on the construction site, and I thought just by the off chance I'll mention the name Gary to see if he has any news on where Gary vanished to. And his old buddy said, "Oh, have you not heard about Gary? He became a member of the Pattaya Squadron flying club." Apparently, Gary fell in love with a bar girl in Pattaya. I say fell in love because he would have got sex bombed. He was relationship naive, commercially naive, and they decided to buy a bar together and go into business together. And Gary sold his state house in Beach Haven, and at the time he would have got about 300,000 US for it, and poured his entire savings into the bar business, of which he got swindled and lost everything. And to avoid the shame and his embarrassment of what happened, he decided to go to the tallest building in Pattaya and jump off it. And that was the end of Gary. And it's a very sad story. But it's a warning to other guys that Pattaya has its dangers. If you're very naive on the relationship front, you can get completely hoodwinked and hypnotized in Pattaya. Most guys go there, they get sex bombed and think this is unbelievable. I've never, ever in my wildest dreams thought this was possible. And the feeling and the emotional attachment is just too good. I've got a woman that looks after me. She cares about me. She makes my meals. She looks after me. And I'm just over the moon. And it's all part of the long game to extract as much money out of you as possible. I'm not saying all bar girls like this. I'm sure there are some bar girls there that are very genuine and want to get in and get out quite quickly and make a bit of money. But on the whole, I'd personally say the majority of bar girls, you're dealing with a seedy underbelly that can't be trusted at all. Anyway, Gary was not a commercial businessman, and he was also commercially naive. Even though he was self-employed, he was very, very basic. Did his invoices by handwriting on a bit of paper, invoiced you. But he wasn't savvy at all about the ins and outs of going into business with someone. And with Thailand, their laws only allow 49% shareholder of a foreigner in a business in Thailand. So automatically you've lost control to someone that has 51%. They have the majority of the voting stock and they can outmaneuver you. And this is exactly what I assumed happened in Gary's space. He got outmaneuvered. He put all his life savings into a business, believing he was in love with a girl. He wasn't. He was being hoodwinked. He was being swindled out of his life savings, and he lost a lot. And a message to you guys out there: if you're thinking of going to Thailand, in particular Pattaya, eyes wide open, guys, because it's not all milk and honey. In some ways, it's like a candy store with a child going into it if you're not that experienced on relationships. So eyes wide open, and do not hand over any sizable amounts of money and under any circumstances, because the rules are stacked against you, and the Thai women who operate in that area know about it. You can only own 49% of a business, and land ownership you cannot buy. A foreigner cannot buy land in Thailand, so it has to go into your girlfriend's name, and she's got you by the balls if the title is in her name, because if she wants out of the relationship, she can have the land that goes with it, and you'll have to leave the country. So it's a very tricky situation, and you lose control. So don't be a fool, guys, and think that some woman who you've just met is totally in love with you, because most likely she's playing the long game and will try and extract as much money out of you as possible. And the last thing is alcohol. Alcohol and relationships and alcohol and business do not mix. I don't drink at all. Or if anything, it's if you're at a celebration party, celebrating someone's new child or engagement or wedding or whatever, it's just a very small sip of champagne. That's as far as I go with alcohol. And I've seen people in Thailand, mostly foreigners, who get absolutely drunk in the bars, and I just cannot understand how, one, they can perform sexually, and how they can think logically in their relationship if they're getting drunk every night. So alcohol and relationships don't mix, and definitely alcohol and businesses don't mix. Never ever do business when you've been drinking or signing documents when you're under the influence of alcohol, because you're not thinking straight. Keep alcohol straight out of the picture. It blurs your mind and you end up doing silly things that you regret. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you got something out of it. It's a very sad story about Gary, but these things do happen, and it's not the first. If you do Google Pattaya Flying Squadron Club, then you'll see more stories like this. So that's it for today, guys. Eyes wide open if you're going to go to Pattaya, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, comment in the comments section. It all helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you have a story you want to share with viewers, you can contact me on my email address listed below. Until next time, take care.